I'm Jessica. I'm an editor and I also call myself a brand book coach and strategist. I had read Dharma If You Dare, I believe it was called, years and years ago, and I liked it and I thought I want to be part of the next book that they put out. And we started chatting about a memoir that Qapel was writing. He had most of volume one already written at that point, and he was looking for some guidance on how he was going to construct this memoir, which I will say up front, we always called it a memoir, but it's more like an autobiography because it's very, very complete. It's like the full unabridged story of Qapel. But he had a very unique vision for it, which I loved. And he wanted some guidance, as I said, on how to blend his idea of the memoir and his story with a completely fictional story and how he could put the two together in the same book. I helped him with that sort of like big picture editing and then all the way down to copy editing and then a final proofread.
I'm wondering what your first impression of Capel was like, or what your first meeting, what do you
Mhm.
remember about those?
The impression I first had of Kapel when meeting him on a Zoom call was unnerving. It felt like we were in the same room. Obviously, he has a very deep soul, and I remember distinctly him telling me on the call that he wanted to work with me because I had a Dharma heart, and I really liked to hear that from him. But yes, definitely an impressive being to be with, even just over a Zoom call. When I tell other people that I worked on this amazing book with this client, like a memoir, I say like he left nothing out of this book. He was extremely vulnerable in sharing a lot of moments that some people could interpret in their own way that might not shine the best light on him, but he still wanted to put it out there. He said something to me about like, I hope I'm not around when it's published because I'm very nervous about the reaction of the book. And I remember replying to him, um, it's your story and it's your truth. And if you're worried about the reaction that some people are going to have about particular details that you've included in this book, do we care? Like, if they're going to be sitting over here clutching their pearls, I'm not sure that they're like the target readers for your book anyway. And I remember he laughed at that, but I think I'm veering off from your original question, but hopefully that gives people some insight into what it was like to collaborate with him over time on this book.
What changes did you see in Capel's writing over the time that you worked with him? How did he evolve as a writer?
He was having way, way more fun with it as we went along because he got really excited about how he could blend the sci-fi sections with his own story because maybe to give listeners and viewers some more context, the sci-fi portions of the book, the main character of Kaza is meant to mirror Qapel and his journey, sort of almost like um, Qapel at two different stages of his life. One where he was more, I guess, awakened, and one where he was still sort of searching on that road. So that was really interesting and wonderful to read how he could juxtapose the two and have that be a learning tool for the readers, holding up a mirror to people reading the book and sort of asking them to question where they are in their lives and do they want to make a change.
Oh, it's exciting to hear all this background. Thank you. So you had first encountered Capel's ideas, his words in Dharma If You Dare, in terms of this is a vehicle for teaching and for helping people who might pick it up. How present was the mission of that part of the book in your discussions?
I would say that was a central mission to the book. It was certainly in the forefront of his mind, but that's sort of the compass that I used to steer us in the right direction. It dawned on me that it was also a personal exercise for him to get this stuff out on the page. I, as his editor, wanted to cut a little bit more than he was comfortable with. I guess for him, you're cutting out parts of his life and his experiences. And while some of those cuts he accepted, others he was adamant about keeping in the book. And I had to trust him on that, but it all made sense as as I read the first draft of volume three and realized like where he was going with all of it. So in answer to your question, I would say like that was my one guiding thing is who is going to be reading this? How can we make it make sense so that they're not overwhelmed by this complicated new concept of like blending the two genres? And how can we impart the lessons that he wants to impart, but not make it feel like a textbook? Make it feel more like these stories that we used to. He referenced Star Wars while we were working together, Harry Potter, I'm sure like many other ones that we all know and love from pop culture, and to pull the reader in and have it be, I guess, more emotion driven, I suppose, because if you were just to take the victory protocols, so the lessons in the journals inside this Psynauts memoirs, and just line them up, which we did in an appendix, I think, it would be a much different book. You could have approached it as a purely teaching book. Qapel was also very, very attuned to the modern media and how people were absorbing information, how they were taking in content, and he wanted to reach more people with these books, including younger generations. So the feeling that I get was he wanted to reach audiences in the right way.
For me, when I'm talking about the book, when I have to say what it is it a memoir? Is it a science fiction adventure? Is it a book of spiritual teachings? It feels like it could be any of those, depending on the reader.
And that's key, isn't it? Because, yeah, it depends on who's asking you that question. Because Qapel had such a huge following around the world, and many people who are interested in him and his journey, you could pitch the book to them as an autobiography or a memoir if you want. And that would be enough for them to want to read it, and then they would receive the victory protocols. But if you're talking to someone who doesn't know Qapel or they're not familiar with Clear Sky, or they're like just opening themselves up to Dharma and teachings and such, you might not want to sell it to them as an autobiography. You might want to sell it to them more as like a science fiction read that is going to help you understand the world or the journey that you're embarking on.
Yeah. What do you think will resonate most with readers? If you had to guess.
Ooh, that's a really good question. It would probably be different for every reader. Um, there's so much about Keppel's life in there. He lived through so much, man, so much. I think it's easy for someone to pick out something in any of the volumes and find that relatable and resonate with that. It's really hard to answer your question to pick one thing that's going to resonate with everyone. I think it's going to be like an Easter egg. Everyone should read it and figure that out for themselves.
Only time will tell, but I'm wondering if you have any sense of what you think the legacy of this relationship that you had with Capel will be for yourself, personally or professionally. Um, and then, if you have any thoughts about the legacy for the book too, great. But
Hmm. Sure. Wow, thank you for that question. I love that. Um, he knew somehow that part of his legacy was going to live on through books, and that's how he was going to reach people, even once he's no longer with us. Because books aren't anything new. Social media is very much, but books aren't. And people are still looking for information, solutions to their problems, to their struggles, to, their emotional upheaval, whatever, through books. So, and that's my whole MO, right? I love books, and that's what I help other people do, business owners in particular, leave part of their legacy behind in a brand book. So, because that's what I love doing. In terms of my relationship with him, working with him as I was wrapping up the final proofread on all three volumes of Psynauts, Took a little bit longer than I wanted to because I just didn't want to let the book go. And I remember emailing him saying, I'm so sorry. I know I'd get this into you by like a certain date, but I don't want to let it go. I don't want to give it to you because that means that we're all done working together. And as excited as I am for the book to finally reach readers, to make a very terrible editorial pun, we're turning the page on something. So we're losing something as well. And yeah, that's sad. It was hard to let go of.